to you. Good morning. Good morning. How do you do? How do you do? I have to leave in a few minutes to get the water delivery. Let him into the gate. So I will watch that and make sure that it happens. Let me put my phone where I can see it. Because he will be coming, or she. I don't know. Let me see. I would like to not have gender. What the fuck? Oh, okay. He's 13 minutes away. Okay. Good morning. How are you? Oomph. How are you feeling? I hope you're feeling better. Boop, 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 boop. We're going to talk about Mark Elias this morning. That's for surezies. And let's see what else. Let's see. I have a clip of. I didn't watch her interview on Fox last night, but they're all freaking out. Hi, Badger. They're all freaking out about it this morning. So that's kind of weird. Our country. Oh, is this? Oh, and preliminary examinations. I wonder if this is happening in Michigan. Buddy going to Judge Nicole courtroom to see if Byrne shows up. Really? Really? I can't wait for the report. Wow. Wow. Hi, Lee. Hi, Lee. Wow. Sweet. Sweet. I hope they encounter him. I want to see, this one might be. My understanding, this is just misdemeanors. Darn it. Okay, because it looks like something's happening in Judge Kristen Simmons' room, but it looks like it might be regular court business. Although something says preliminary, but it looks like she's just on regular court business. Let's see here. What? Donald Trump? Wait, hold on.
Glamorous press, very beautiful press. I went the exact opposite.
I'm sorry. We're going to be it's going to be a little hard this morning.
I really learned how corrupt it was. I didn't think of it as that corrupt because, I'd do something and they give me credit. But no, I had a very different life, actually, when you think about it. But then I run for president.
Listening to talk about the GOP.
92% of the people.
Plans for Detroit, yeah. No, Detroit. I'm worried about Michigan. I'm worried about Pennsylvania. I'm worried about Georgia.
Politicians, and 8% were generals.
Just in terms of, not worried, but you know what I mean. Those are areas where I know there's going to be a lot of activity.
No, there were no admirals. They were all either politicians or they were sort of an interesting point. Most people don't know that. Some people say that's interesting.
That
Other
makes
people
sense
say
because
that's
even Reagan would be a politician because he was a two-term governor.
Well, he was a politician.
Right, he was a politician.
He was a governor.
Yeah, he was.
There was
he was
some
a politician.
That were businessmen, but they were then ran for the Senate.
Yeah, he was.
They were in Congress, and they went from there to the presidency.
This is the big PBD bot.
Nobody ever
big
went
beta.
right to the presidency.
Pussy beta dicks
all of a sudden I'm
show.
President. And I really learned about
I call
the
it
press
the
early in the hard
pussy,
way because I went from one
pussy
extreme
beta
to the other.
dicks.
I got great press, and then all of a sudden, I was treated like by a moron like that, and I really.
Is he pointing to someone off stage?
I fought them very hard. They're very dishonest. They're very corrupt. Not all of them, but a big percentage of them. I would say.
God, it's so quiet.
In the 80s.
Good morning, butterflies. Badger, Lee.
Big percentage. They're very corrupt.
Oomph.
Very corrupt.
Have they always been? Has it always been the case? You've been around You've been around,
Oh wait, I'm on top
media,
chat.
TV.
I don't think it's ever
life.
been like this. Yeah, I've been around it for a long time. I don't think it's ever been like this.
When do you think it
when
flipped?
I started off, Patrick.
Good morning, everyone.
I used to have a story written about me, and without fail, somebody would call after the story was written.
What did you miss
but
yesterday?
Not published.
We did some
and they were called
European
fact
energy
checkers.
stuff.
Hello, sir. We're calling about a story that we wrote about
We
you.
did a bunch
is it
of weird
true
stuff.
that you own this?
I did
and
list
is it
it in
true
the
that
thing.
You did this, and that you spent X dollars. Could we check that number? Blah blah blah. And it would go on for a while, to a point where you'd get somebody else to just do it. But they, without fail, I'd have if there were any details in a story. Not always, but if there were any details, always.
He's looking
they would
older.
call fact checkers. Hello, sir. My name's Jim Smith. I'm a fact
Supreme
checker for the
Three,
New
yeah.
York Times.
Yeah,
And they
a
check
locker
the
room.
facts of a story.
It's a locker room. Don't you
and
get
I think
it?
they at least were trying
It's
to
the
be
Pussy
real.
Beta Dick Show.
I haven't had a fact checker
Pussy
call
Beta-
me in 30
Pussy
years.
Beta
You
Dick
know,
podcast.
They don't call anymore.
Do
They
you
used
think
to
that's
call
because
all
of the
time.
Fairness Doctrine Act of 1987? Because prior to that, the media platforms had to actually
Yeah.
give both sides of the story.
Yeah.
And then once that was dropped, they lost the accountability.
Would
They
you
could
like
say whatever they
Fairness
want to say.
Doctrine back, sir?
And it was kind of free for all. Let me go after them. But for you, when you became a president, you know, if someone's running for office, you have to sit there and
hate
think
this guy.
about issues. Here's what I'm running on: wall, border, you know, economy, XYZ. Great.
Okay,
Obama,
listen,
I'm going to go
this
after
is great.
healthcare.
This
Jimmy
guy's
Carter, I'm going to go
advertising
human
for the
rights. You
fucking
pick and choose
Fairness
what you're running for.
Doctrine.
But there's also an element of who are going to be my allies, who are going to be my enemies. Did you sit there and say, the enemy of the people is media, I'm going to go after them? Or did you say, no, this happened accidentally? Was this intentional or was it accidental?
I think it's just long-term happened. It morphed into it. I
Got
don't
it.
think they said.
Oh,
I'm
what?
talking
But I can
specifically
tell you,
for you,
Energy
though.
Commission.
For me,
It's
I,
the Low
look, I'm
Energy
the worst
Commission,
case because
but I'm
there's nobody
bummed.
been abused like I have. And I don't think.
He is such a
although
victim.
I guess probably some, but for a shorter period of time. There's nobody for over such a
Who
long.
would you put? You even thought about it. Who do you think? For sure.
I'd have
Who
to
would-
think short term. People have been abused. Yeah,
Worse
over
than-
one deal and they're gone.
Oh, okay.
Or something.
I got it.
But I've been doing this for a long
Right.
time, and I've abused them also. So I do that.
What did you target them and say, I'm going to go attack media and I'm going to go after them? Is that part of strategy that you had? Or no, that was just,
No.
if you come after me, I'm going to come after you?
I think it's a natural instinct with me. Like it would be for
Right.
you and other
Right.
people that know how to win a little bit.
Sure.
No, but I really saw it in politics. I would tell them something, and they would write the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What's
Good.
that all about?"
That's what I'm.
I
that's what I
called
want.
up. The Washington Post was treating me very
inspire.
bad. New York Times is probably the worst, but the two of them
Let
are
me see if
really
I have any
bad.
more.
And I know how to deal with the press.
I
I'm
have a clip
professional,
on
I'm a
that,
smart
butterflies.
guy, and I know.
I have a clip
so
on
I said,
that.
"Watch, I'm going to call the press." in
Carla, are you here?
Washington Post.
Oh, there you
during
are.
my
dear. Hi.
first or second year, and I said, "I'm going to call the Washington Post. I'm not going to joke. I'm not going to be cute. I'm not going to be a wise guy. I'm going to just call him in,
Yeah.
and I want to talk, and I'm going to explain what a great job I've done
Okay.
on different things like the economy. I had a
Right.
great economy. All that.
Right. Yeah.
And I called him in. I was very nice. I didn't say "Hey, how's it going?" Everything was really professional.
Mm, I
The
didn't
numbers
even
were
talk.
fantastic. Everything was perfect. And I treated them with great respect, shook their hand, and it was over. And the next day they wrote a horrible story. It was, and I said, there's no
That's the facts.
way around it.
It's
And
right.
usually
because
it's
the
the liberal
facts
side, and I
are
don't understand
pretty
it. really.
terrible.
Why wouldn't they want to have a strong border? I don't understand them because, usually like in business, you'll understand why somebody wants something. Why wouldn't they want to have a strong border?
They do.
Why do they want to have men
He is
playing in
exhausting.
women's sports? I watched the Olympics and
Why do
two
they?
people transitioned
He
into
just keeps lying about stuff.
womanhood.
I'm sorry. I have
Two people. They went from man to woman and they were into boxing.
I don't
and they
have
beat
my.
the hell out of everyone. They won the gold
This is
medal.
weird, but I'm going to share anyway.
Weightlifting.
I'm not able to
Records
get
have
my
held for 18 years.
arthritis medicine
A
right
quarter
now.
of an ounce on each side.
So
You've
my
seen me do it
skin,
probably.
because I have
Because it's so
psoriatic
cool. I mean,
arthritis,
weightlifting is so easy to, it's
my
so
skin gets
descriptive,
really
right? How can
itchy
you
and
be better
tingly
than
and
that?
sensitive.
Like
if I
golf
don't
is
have
a
my
little bit harder
medicine.
because you have to sink putts.
So I
That's
get
different.
really. I'm sorry
Women
if I
can
get
putt,
really itchy.
but
It's because
they
my
can't lift, 450 pounds over
my
their head.
medicine.
And the weightlifting record
I hate
that
it.
stood
I
for
hate that
18,
part
19
of it
years
very
gets broken
much.
by 100 pounds.
It's a
They
long
put like a
story.
little, they
Long,
take this,
boring,
they take this
terrible
top of this
story.
pen. See that pen? That thing weighs
And
like
the
an eighth of
pharma.
an ounce.
That's
and
what
they
I
put
say.
one over here.
And the
one over-
pharma.
They couldn't do it for 18 years. So the guy comes along.
Ah,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
it's a whole
I mean, the
host
border
of
could
issues.
make
It's
sense.
an insurance
though.
issue.
If
The
you were to
what?
say, like, why would they want the border to be
Why do
open?
they
there
want
could
an
be
open
argument
border?
to be made
The
there.
premium.
Why do they want an
Never
open
mind.
border?
It's fine.
With
I'm
no
gonna
checking.
I'm gonna work
In
it
other
out. I
words,
just have to make some
there's
phone
nobody
calls that
better
are
double
really a
check.
pain in the ass.
And as you
Oh,
heard
yeah,
2
no,
weeks
it's
ago,
fine.
the
Thank you
Border
for
Patrol
asking,
put out the
Butterflies. I
numbers.
really
They weren't
appreciate
supposed
it.
to, but they did because they had to. Because they
I
had
just have to fight with
inherently. They endorsed me.
I
with
saw
an
that.
insurance.
endorsed
They
me
were
for
billing the
100%,
wrong insurance
like
for
a
my
massive,
medicine.
They said he's the
And so
greatest
finally,
in the
the
history
insurance
I
that
had
they
the best
were
border
billing
in
said,
the history of the country.
she's
I had the
not
best economy
on.
in the history
She's
of the
not
country.
on our
But
plan anymore.
you take a look at some of these stats.
And
So yesterday, a young woman's playing
that means
volleyball.
that
You
when
saw
they
that
went to the
shot?
new
And he
plan,
got hit by
the
a hard shot by a man.
I have to
a
pay
man
the
who
deductible
transitioned.
for the medicine.
There's been many of those. If there was a new
And
one yesterday,
She got hit
there's
in the
been so
head.
many.
She didn't know where she was.
Right.
You know? She said, "I've
This
never
is
seen a
not.
ball
Do not
travel
send
at
any
that
money.
speed
Do
before."
not send me any
But-
money, please.
here's
Okay,
what I-
please do not send
why
any
do they
money.
want that?
But I'll
I
just
don't
tell you,
understand
and
that.
this is the
You
story of
usually
many people
understand,
across
like,
this
somebody wants
country
something.
who are
You
in
try
a
and figure it
worse
out.
position than I
And you could
am.
go through a lot of things, you know. Why do they
My
want
medicine,
transgender?
the
Why do they
annual
want to take
premium,
somebody's child,
the lowest
a boy,
is
and
$3,000.
make
So you have
the
to pay
boy into
that
a girl
before you
and not
you
tell
can
the
pay it
parents?
monthly, but
I mean, they
You
do
have to
this.
arrange
and
that.
at first I said, no, but that's just an exaggeration.
which is
No,
a
it's
deal
not. It's
because
really not.
on
State of
good
California,
on
why
do
good
they
RX,
wanna-
my
yeah.
medicine is
Well, look at
$7,000 a
California,
month.
Gavin Newsom, who's one of the worst
With
governors,
good
but
RX
he's got a good line of
coupons.
stuff, and he'll tell everyone how well he's done. But it's the first time they've ever
So,
lost
yeah.
more people than they gained. You know,
So I just
look,
have
they
to
have
fight
such
with
an
them
advantage.
to
The
make sure
beautiful
that I
ocean,
can
the beautiful
figure
weather,
out that
everything is
deductible.
beautiful.
which is fine.
And
I'll figure
they
it
run
out.
it so badly with all
And
of the problems.
we'll get it
They run
resolved.
so,
But
he's
I
a
just have to
crummy
make
governor,
fucking
but-
phone calls,
but
and it's really
why is it so?
it's
Yesterday, and who would
the
sign the bill to
medical
even
calls
present it to
trigger
him?
me. It
He
triggers
signed a
my
bill that you're not
anxiety
even
really
allowed
badly
to ask for voter ID.
because
In
I
other
had a
words, it's not
really
like you
bad
can't have
nervous
voter
breakdown
ID. That's
kind of in
terrible.
2021.
Because everybody should have voter
So
ID.
around
you have
medical
ID for
issues.
everything. The Democrats
So
had big ID.
it's
you know, when
very
they had their
triggering for me.
convention,
That's all.
a friend of mine couldn't get
But
in. He
it'll
said
be
he doesn't
fine,
have
and
the
I will get
proper
it. I will get
credentials.
my medicine.
They want voter ID.
Mm-hmm.
They
It's
had
not a
a
problem.
strong
It's
ID.
just going to take a
They
minute.
had an ID that you had to wear.
And a few
like
phone
a
calls.
prisoner wears, you know, with the number. It was like this big card with a picture.
But that's
and
why we
everything
need
over their
Medicare
tie.
for all,
So
and
they
we
have
need
it for the
better
Democrat
negotiations on
National
drug
Convention,
prices.
right?
That's what
But
we
they
need.
don't want to have it for the vote. But
That's
but
what we
Gavin
need.
Newsom signed a thing that was incredible.
Oh.
He signed a bill that if you ask somebody for identification,
I
having
don't
to
think
do
this
with
is
voting,
true. I'd kind
I
of like
think
to
you've
fact check
committed
that.
a
Hold
crime.
on.
Okay.
I don't think that's true.
Now there's only one reason that happens, because they want to cheat. There's no other reason. There's no
But
conceivable.
are you
other.
surprised? I mean, part of me is not surprised with that. I'm not sitting there thinking I'm surprised with what some of these states are doing.
Pussy beta
California,
dick
I mean,
is such a dick.
You know, there's a reason why he lost
All right, let
two
me
states
see
lost
here.
$1 trillion of money under management
Yeah.
from 2020. New York
let's see
and
here.
California, they got destroyed. And the first time they had net negative migration in California since
Okay,
1851,
California.
it hasn't happened. Then they got it back to back to back.
Law
And he
on
just announced
ID.
2 days ago that he's raising gas taxes by 47 cents in the state of California. No wonder people are leaving. But I want to go to the tariffs
Because
conversation
he doesn't
with
want
you.
gas vehicles.
okay. The
He
new
wants to use all
California
of
It's
those
law-
not going to work for
vehicles.
him, though. It's
And
not going to work.
people
for him. They-
don't.
The new California law, SB 1174, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 1174 into law on September 29, 2024, prohibits local governments from requiring voters to present identification when casting their ballots at the polls. So this, actually, I'll show it to you. I'll show you. This is from New California. Oh, wait, what is this from? I don't know what this is from. Oh, Perkins Coie. Oh, my God, this is a law firm. This is a big law firm here in town. Or in town. It's a big law firm across the country. Okay. Fabs. Whoops. Fabs. Okay. So, SB 1174, authored by State Senator Dave Min from Irvine, which is in Orange County, which is traditionally very red. It's right below LA County. It's where San Diego is, all that stuff. Was introduced following disagreements between the state of California and the city of Huntington Beach, which is incredibly a racist city. Huntington Beach is one of those weird-ass cities. Beautiful. There's some beautiful people there. In fact, one of my dearest friends lives there. But there is also a real history and current vibe of white supremacist kind of shit. Yeah, it's just saying counties can't do whatever they want. Okay? That's what it is. Huntington Beach in October 2023, the Huntington Beach City Council took advantage of the ambiguity and voted to place a measure on the March 2024 ballot known as Measure A, seeking voter approval for a city charter amendment revising the city's election process. The text of Measure A granted the city broad discretion to require identification at polling places to determine voter eligibility without defining what would constitute a valid form of identification or providing any other details regarding the measure's requirements or implementation. So listen, the point is that California sued the city of Huntington Beach for that. And, oh my God. Okay, let's see. So on its face, 1174 applies to all California local governments, including charter cities like Huntington Beach, and it was specifically intended to invalidate Measure A. However, the city attorney in Huntington Beach had said that as a charter city, state law cannot interfere with the city's right to control city elections. What? Oh, so they're quoting the California Constitution. Thus, Huntington Beach has vowed to defend Measure A. Although the text of Measure A indicates that the identification requirements will apply to municipal elections, the measure's opponents have pointed out that it may be applied to any election for any officer occurring at voting locations within the city, since municipal elections are usually on the same ballot as other races. Indeed, as a practical matter, if Measure A survives legal challenges and SB 1174 also goes into effect, Huntington Beach election administrators and voters could be in for a cumbersome experience. To abide by both Measure A and SB 1174, Huntington Beach may have to run parallel elections involving one ballot for citywide races and one for all other races, only requiring voter IDs for the citywide elections. It's not clear how election administrators could ensure that the ID requirement would only apply to the citywide ballot, given that in many cases, i.e. the one coming up our ass next 2 weeks, city and non-city elections occur on the same day. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. So that's the law. See, there you go. See, there's always that little tiny grain of truth, right? Hi, Neil. How are you, darling? Welcome. There's always that little tiny grain of truth, and then they blow their way through it. But this is just so that you can't impose a burdensome ID requirement just because you're a fucking asshole. That's what they should have called it. Don't be an asshole law. That's what they should call it. How about that? Haberdashery. All right. I'm sorry. We're listening to the moron this morning. That's the way we are. But I have other things, and they're good. They'll be happy.
You're going to get destroyed.
You,
I mean, he's
People
already
don't-
lost Musk. How do you lose Tesla? How do you lose Musk out of your state?
I asked Elon. He takes this massive company
Dump.
and he left California.
Mm-hmm.
I just asked him this question yesterday. I said, when you left, because he's got a good thing in Texas, I said, when you left, did Newsom, I call him Newsom because I think it's a more accurate name, but did
But it's
Gavin Newsom call and say, can we talk? I want to take you out to dinner. I want you to keep your
What did he
company.
say?
Oh.
He said he never called.
Newsom should have.
Your biggest entrepreneur in your state leaves, you
sucked
don't call
Number
him.
Elon's
one, biggest
dick.
guy. Number two, big
Yes,
company.
Sue,
very big
that's
company.
right.
But
Whoop,
a big
whoop,
oil company left
whoop,
also,
whoop.
taking
That's right,
thousands
girl.
of jobs.
Wow.
But my question wasn't that,
Way to go, Sue.
you know, that he left for whatever. I mean,
It is a
did anybody
locker
ever call? He
room.
said
Come
no.
on, they're
I said,
boys.
did,
They're boys.
Newsom call you
Oof,
at
come
all? Did
on.
he,
You're a boy.
Like, call and say, like,
They're boys. They're doing
can
boy
we have
stuff.
dinner? I'd love you to
Stop
stay
it.
here and
It's
we'll
just
work
boy
out some tax
stuff.
benefits or something, you know,
I
some
gotta
incentive.
check my
Just
water
like,
delivery. Hold on.
he said, never called. I was amazed at that. And you're talking about thousands of workers
That is
and
wild.
prestige.
Oh,
and having
okay.
Elon
I gotta go.
is-
I'll be
That
RB.
is wild that you lose and you don't make the phone
You know,
call.
Elon endorsed me very strongly a while ago, and there's no stronger endorsement. He said that if Trump doesn't get elected, this country is going down the tubes. It might not ever survive. He said it's the most important election. I was honored, but I was amazed because I asked him two days ago. I said, did anybody make a play to keep you? Now think of it. You would, if you were governor, you heard of big companies leaving. I would.
First phone call.
At least you're calling, say, is
Right.
there anything we can do to keep you, right?
You know what I like about, and I do want to go to the tips, and I think this is a great transition. Tim Cook, they asked him, they said, why would you have a meeting with President Trump? Because he's the only president that called me. Oh, Okay, let's talk about something else. Of course he's going to have a meeting with if the guy's calling. Why wouldn't you call the CEO of your, $3 trillion company? But
I
let's talk
just spoke
tariffs.
to Tim Cook.
Tim,
Can I tell you?
I think he's a quality CEO. Go for it.
So, if I'm
When
going
you
to say
say just
something,
talk,
people,
when did you talk to him? Like how recent?
2 hours ago.
Okay.
He called me. I didn't
Okay.
call him. And let me give you just a little. The nice part about this long format, you can talk.
Yes.
Right? It's very nice. It's something very, as opposed to bing, 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 bing. That's why long format is working. Right?
Yes.
But I just talked to him. But I believe that if Tim Cook didn't run Apple, if Steve Jobs did, it wouldn't, maybe it would be, but it wouldn't be nearly as successful as it is
Wow,
now.
what a statement to
I think
make.
so. Because I think Tim
What a
Cook has
statement
done,
to
I
make.
think Tim Cook's done an amazing job. And I'm not knocking Steve Jobs. I just think that it wouldn't have been. So, tell you a couple of stories. So, about second term of second year, I get a call, and they say Tim Cook's on the phone. He calls. He said, "Could I see you, sir?" No, he's the head of Apple. And I was born in Queens, and I said, "Oh, the head of Apple wants to see me. Let's go, I guess." Even though I'm president, still I was born in Queens, and the head of Apple's calling, and by that time it was the largest company in the world. It's the largest.
Sure, yeah.
In terms of value at that time, I don't know what it is now, but it was. So he comes in to see me, and it was about tariffs. He said, "You're charging us 25% because I was going to charge them because we're out of China, and the problem is we can't compete with Samsung because they didn't have to pay tariffs because they weren't in China and they were in South Korea." And he said, "It's not really possible for me." And I did waivers, standard waivers. "It's not possible for me to compete with them if I have to pay a tax and they don't to get our product into the United States." I said, "I agree with you." It didn't take long. I mean, I sort of got it, right? And I said, "I'm going to give you a waiver," and I gave him a waiver. But I'm going to give you a 1-year waiver, but I want you to start building your plants in the United States. And he said, "All right." And he actually did. He built one in Texas. He would have built a lot more, but we had a thing called, a change in the administration, which is so horrible what happened because of Russia would have never happened with Ukraine. October 7th would have never happened. Inflation would have never happened. Afghanistan,
back.
we
Sorry.
would have gotten out sooner, actually, than him. But Afghanistan would have never happened as we know it. All of these things would have never. Think of the difference
Nothing would
in
have
this
happened.
country. No inflation.
Nothing did happen.
We would have been so
Look at,
rich
I would have been so
because we
great.
were going for we would have had 4 to 5
I would have
times
been
the
so great.
production that they have right now. They
No, it's
lost the
not Vivek
production, and then they got
Ramaswamy.
it
That
back
is
as
a
the whole
guy.
thing was cratering.
What's his
Because
name?
oil went up to
I call him
$7,
Pussy
$8
Boy
a
Dick
gallon.
Podcast.
So Tim Cook called.
No, Pussy
And
Beta.
then he-
Pussy
about
Beta.
A year
Dick
later, he called
podcast.
again on something else. He said, "Could I see you?"
Pretty much.
Now,
He doesn't
most
have his little
companies
short guy who
send
is
in,
really annoying. I mean, they're all
lobbyists that
annoying.
get paid millions and millions of
He's
dollars.
kind of
to
like
talk for
the
them.
dad
And they
for
probably say, "We know
Barstool
Trump,
Sports
we
kind of
can talk," but
guys.
they don't.
If
for
that
the
makes
most part, they
sense. I
don't.
think of him as a Barstool
And
Sports
Tim
kind
Cook
of
called
guy.
me up directly, and he did it
Who's a
himself.
total
Didn't
dick,
have to pay
the guy
10
that runs
cents, and I
that.
gave him 100% of what he wanted because he was right. I mean, you can't compete with Samsung, and one's paying a tax.
Oh God, this
But I
is the
said,
one
"You
he
gotta
gave to
gradually
Apple. This
move
was a
your
great
company here."
question from the
But
economic
then
thing where
2
he
hours
said,
ago, 3
um,
hours ago,
so
he
what
called
you're
me.
hurting
He
small
said, "I'd like
businesses
to
with
talk
your
to you about
tariffs.
something." What? He said,
And his
the
answer
European Union has
was,
just
"Oh,
fined
but I
us
gave Apple an
$15 billion."
exception.
I said, "That's a lot."
And the guy's like,
I
that's
know
not
the
a small
feeling 'cause I get
business.
fined too in fake cases.
And if you're giving
But I don't know
exceptions,
if his
is it really a
case
rule?
is fake yet, but it's a lot. Then
Patrick
on top
bet
of that,
David,
they
yeah.
got fined by the European
No,
Union.
I know.
another
He's
$2
got
billion.
this
So
big
he's a
show,
17 to
PBD, but I call it
$18 billion
Pussy Beta
fine.
Dick.
I even said about Apple, "Can you pay that?" I mean, do you have that guy? That's a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
And he said something that was interesting. He said they're using that to run
He's a dick.
their enterprise, meaning Europe is their enterprise.
I'll tell you
And
that. He's
I
a
said,
dick.
"That's a lot." He said, "But Tim, I got to get elected first. But I'm not going to let them take advantage
He's
of
such a
our
gross,
companies.
yeah,
That
Pussy Beta
won't,
Dick
be
podcast.
happening." I talked about
I mean,
yesterday.
that's
I
the
talked
vibe
about
I'm
something
getting.
that was very
I don't know
important.
about
if
anybody
it
else,
got- China was building massive
China.
plants in Mexico.
Huffyson.
And I let
Massive
them,
plant. Right.
massive, the biggest
Right.
plants in
Yep.
the world. And my friend was actually building it.
It's the one right there.
Oh, that's
It's
it.
massive.
Guess what? They're not building it anymore. You know that, right?
Right, I heard.
I have
Do
a
you know
picture
why?
of
Do
him.
you-
Because of me. And if they built that, there would be no more Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Detroit's been decimated over the years.
Okay, we're done with him. I think we're
but
done.
there would be no more Detroit.
I think we're done here.
So they're
Sir, I think we're done. I think we're done. We're going back to the fire. I think the Kraken's about to throw Corinne into the fire. That's what I think's going to happen. It looks like a tractor trailer park. Well, yeah. It looks like a pussy beta dick boy kind of set. Here, I'll show you. Wait, I'll show you one more time. See, look at that. That's a fucking stupid ass set. Sir, this is a democracy. I know. Keep Detroit out of your fucking mouth. That's right, Lee. Holy shit. Let's see. I have other things for us. I want to go through a Mark Elias thing. Oh, there's a DC appeals, but I don't know what case it is.
Party doesn't have any, like, it doesn't independently, outside of the fact that they're at an airport, right, apply to them.
Say the private party didn't do it.
What is it?
Uh,
Capital serviceman. Oh, boring.
whose
Okay, no, we're not
responsibility would
watching
that
you
be? Would it
guys.
be the
You're boring. That's a boring case. I'm sorry. I have still. Let's see if she's doing anything.
Some paper, I think, locate in reference, it might have been a trespass call.
Okay. Garage and kitchen shelving. Yeah, I know, right? That's it. That suit too, Neil. What a stupid ass suit. I'm sorry. Okay, that's a dumbass suit. I don't like shiny suits. I think they're dumb. Unless you're like going to Easter brunch. I bet it's just the front of a suit. That's right. It's like Master of Disguise where he puts on the like big shell of a suit. That's what it is. No, he's trying to tell you how rich he is by showing you a suit that somebody, I don't know, sewed on him. I'm not sure what. I'm not sure what the deal was. Okay, hold on. I've got stuff. Hold on. We've got letters. We've got letters. Oh, playlists. Where's my playlist? Here we go. View full playlist. Okay, so I have. Oh wait, where's? Oh yeah, okay. I have a little bit from Brian Taylor Cohen about Georgia with Mark Elias. And then I also have a little Washington Post thing they did this morning, 11 minutes, on should we change the way we elect presidents? Can we? So I kind of want to watch that, if that's okay. He's probably wearing gym shorts. Well, I'll be honest with you. I would be too. I have never seen him. I'd be open to him working at a McDonald's in Detroit. That would do it. Yep. Just have him do any kind of actual labor. Crazy. Anyway, so that's them. Crazy boys. Boy, boy, crazy boy.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark.
Oh, be quiet. Got a rocket in your pocket. Ah, cootie coo boy. Do-do. Do-do-do. That's better, isn't it? Isn't that better? Brian Taylor Cohen, BTC, and the big Mark Elias. Gotta love that. Got a rocket in your pocket. That cootie coo boy. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is Trump finally got the legal news he's been dreading in Georgia. I hate their headlines so much. I think, okay, so I have a theory. You know how Midas Touch does these really like clickbaity headlines? I feel like, I know, sorry to start your morning that way. I feel like, what was I going to say? Oh, wait. Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say. I feel like, oh, damn it. Okay, it'll come back. It's not a big deal. Okay, here we go.
Mark, the moment we've been waiting for, we finally got a ruling out of Georgia where those 3 MAGA members of the state election board implemented a rule that would have required a hand recount of all ballots in the November election, a move which would have certainly thrown the entire race there into chaos. So the judge ruled. What did he find?
Yeah, so in a blockbuster decision late at night, the judge blocked this rule, saying that it was too much, too late. That this rule was passed at the very last minute, that it would put chaos into the system. The poll workers had not been trained on this hand-counted ballots, and that the state election board, their effort to at the last minute pass this rule, and by the way, some others, right, which he didn't rule on, but it sort of foreshadows where some of these other rules may be vulnerable, that their effort to pass these last-minute rules are not going to succeed, and this hand count rule is blocked.
Mark, did he rule on the ability of the Georgia State Election Board to be able to even pass these rules, or just on the timing with which they tried to pass it?
So on this one, it was a little bit of both, right? On this one, it was that it was too late, but he definitely seemed to also question the underlying premise of why this was necessary. But that's a fight for another day. That'll be a 2026 problem when you found a younger lawyer to be on this series with you. Glenn and I are getting old.
No. I think we're okay. I think we'll be fine for 2026, especially if Donald Trump can run for president in 78. I think we're okay. Can this ruling be
maybe what I'll do is say, you know what? At this point, let's just listen to some music.
Yeah. Just should we do a 39-minute special where we just sway back and forth?
By the way, the most pathetic part of that was Kristi Noem, who tried to act as if what was going on was normal. Let's just show some tape here.
Let's not do any more questions. Let's just listen to music. Let's make it into a music. Who the hell wants to hear questions, right?
They'll still get it. Jim,
Isn't that beautiful, though? We could do another question or two if you'd like, but probably. Do you want to do one? Let's go.
Focus on trafficking.
It's.
See Matt
But
Gaetz.
it ends so beautifully. How about this? We'll play YMCA.
I mean, there's the smallest part of me from deep down, just as a human being, I do kind of feel bad for her in the sense that she has to, to your exact point, she has to pretend that this is all fine when this is definitely not okay. What do you think when you are already 15 minutes in, and she didn't even know that she wasn't even halfway in of just swaying on stage in what would amount to no fewer than 10 songs?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and the fact is that, and it's a microcosm of what we talk about all the time in terms of democracy. Because, one of the things that comes up over and over again, I think, in these videos and with the audience is, how is it that not just Donald Trump says these things, but 3 election board members in Georgia are passing these rules. That you have Republican secretaries of state and saying things. So you have Republican members of Congress in the Senate, who are asked questions like, did Donald Trump lose in 2020? And they seem unable to answer the question. J.D. Vance unable to answer the question. And and in some ways, I brought this up because Kristi Noem having to sit there and act as if what was going on was normal is actually a metaphor for the entire Republican Party and the reason why democracy is where it is today.
Right. They are trafficking in make-believe for a guy who has based on all the data that we have, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2023, been an albatross around their necks, and yet, they continue to hitch their wagons to his. Going back to the Georgia State Election Board ruling, can this ruling be appealed?
Yeah, look, I am sure that the state election board, those 3 MAGA members, will insist on appealing. It would go next, presumably to the state's intermediate court, the Court of Appeals, and then ultimately to the state Supreme Court. In some instances, that can be accelerated. I don't see any evidence that'll be the case here, but I'm sure they are going to appeal this up the chain. But look, there is this principle about not changing the rules too close to the election, and the closer we get, every day that goes by, it becomes even less practical to implement these rules for the 2024 election. So I feel feel like, first of all, I think the trial court got it right, but second of all, I think the appellate courts are going to be loath to, at the last minute, interject uncertainty into this.
Oh, watch them, Mark.
What are the rules as they stand right now in
hold my
Georgia then?
beer.
What can we expect for how the election process is going to play out in November?
Okay, so there's the rules, and then how we expect it to play out. The rules are that the precincts people cast their ballots in the precincts, and the precincts report those results to the counties. The counties will collect those results. They will have a canvas in which they look at all the tapes and make sure that any provisional ballots are adjudicated and handled, and then they certify the results. Now, there are other efforts by the Republicans on other rules. For example, they want that discretion in the certification process. Now, they had a big setback because an election denier named Adams on the Fulton County Board tried to proactively bring a lawsuit saying, I have discretion, and the judge said no to that, right? But there is still the lawsuit pending that we're waiting for a ruling in about whether the rule that was passed along those ways is struck down. I think it will be. And then there are some other rules that the state election board have promulgated, and they may, who knows, maybe even try to rush them more. But the way this is supposed to work is the way I just described.
You had just alluded to the other ruling that was handed down that found that officials, including members of the state election board, must certify by the certification deadline. So what are the implications of that move here?
Yeah, so this was a lawsuit actually brought by an election denier on the Fulton County Board who's like, excuse me, I would like to do my own investigation, and only after I am satisfied that everything is proper and correct, I'll take my time about this. Right. Will I certify? And I
and this was somebody super closely aligned with Cleta Mitchell, for example.
Yes, right. The national Republican lawyer who was on the Georgia call, I might add, in the famous Georgia call with Brad Rasenberger in 2021, finding the 11,000 votes. But the court said absolutely not. The court basically said, look, there is some minimum amount of investigation you can do, but honestly, it is, regardless of what your investigation shows, it is a ministerial act. Like, you have to certify the numbers you're given. You don't have discretion. And by the way, if your investigation is taking too long, forget your investigation. You cannot miss the deadline. So the court really gave the back of the hand to this argument that there is any discretion in the certification process. And I expect that there will be further rulings in line with that in the coming days.
And by the way, I would just mention that you've been covering this extensively on Democracy Docket. So for those who aren't yet subscribed or signed up for Democracy Docket, it's the news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting in elections, especially important right now as all of this kind of bubbles up to the surface in the lead up to the November election. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If you haven't yet signed up, do yourself a favor and sign up. Mark, this is something that's been completely perplexing me, and that is that Georgia Attorney General Carr, he had said this about the rule that was ultimately just struck down here. The statuses upon which these rules rely do not reflect any provision enacted by the General Assembly for the hand counting of ballots prior to the tabulation. These proposed rules are not tethered to any statute and are therefore likely the precise type of impermissible legislation that agencies cannot do. So why did Carr not only not exercise his power to stop these state election board members from enacting this scheme, he actually defended them in court? How do you square that circle?
Look, at the time that the Attorney General issued that opinion, and I think there were also words from the Secretary of State basically along the same lines. One of the things that you and I talked about, people can go back and look at the tape, is whether or not that they would actually challenge the laws. Right? Whether they would be like, okay, it's great you issued a letter. How about now? How about now they pass the rule? How about you sue and challenge the rule? Right? And the fact is that these are still MAGA Republicans. They may not want chaos on their watch, and I think that is true. I don't think the Attorney General or Secretary of State want chaos on their watch, but that doesn't mean that they are prepared to do the affirmative step of opposing something that Donald Trump has come out, so strongly in favor. So I think Carr went as far as he felt like he had to, or he did as little as he felt like he had to do to keep kind of the business community and the normal Republicans feeling like he's, not just allowing the place to go to hell. But he was not going to go further than that. And that, I think, is probably a good wrap up of what you can expect from him and from Secretary Rasenberger as we move forward.
It was very Mitch McConnell blaming Donald Trump for the January 6th insurrection before then refusing to vote to convict him for the very thing that he just said that Trump was responsible for. So, again, the bare minimum.
It absolutely is. And maybe this is the point at which we ought to play a little Laura Trump and just sway you to the music.
That's right. All right, well, let's finish up with this then, while that music plays underneath. Now that
because I know you're a big fan. You're a big. People don't know this about him. There are Springsteen fans. There are Taylor Swift fans. This guy is a Laura Trump music fan.
Let's just say I was a Laura Trump music fan before it was even cool to be a Laura Trump music fan. Now that this specific threat regarding the Georgia State Election Board and hand counting ballots has been neutralized, are there any other ongoing cases related to the Georgia State Election Board that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, so there are. Look, there remains other cases challenging this rule. That there were several lawsuits filed around this rule by various counties, by the Democratic National Committee, and kudos to them, by the way. Great job with the lawyers for the DNC in this case. But so those cases have not yet been adjudicated, but I think will come out the same way. There are also still cases pending over the certification issue. So the case that's been decided was the affirmative case brought by a member of the Fulton County board seeking to have discretion, but there are still cases challenging the rule that the state election board passed to give them that discretion. And then there are rules about some of the other of the 7 rules that the state election board passed, including, by the way, an interesting lawsuit filed by some never Trump Republicans claiming that under a pretty conservative legal theory, all of these rules should be wiped out.
Well, I know that you will stay on top of all of that in Democracy Docket. So again, for those who are watching right now, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. And of course, we'll stay on top of this as soon as we get any updates as far as the Georgia State Election Board is concerned. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.
Yay. I thought that was really good. So I'm going to link that too. Hi, Carrie. Good morning. I know. This is, I feel like Carla, I feel that. I feel that same. Actually, I feel a little sense of dread this time. 2020, I didn't feel such dread. But I'm really surprised how far forward the propaganda has come. And I actually was talking to Bobo about that last night when she got home from work and just talking about and my algorithm is showing me, of course, a lot of the propaganda that's designed to influence people. And I don't know, it just feels like they've amped up on some really harsh messages. And oh boy, it's just really too much. Next, we're going to go to Marcy Wheeler, also known as Emptywheel. We love Marcy. Actually, one of the few subscriptions I have is to her website because for all the wonderful things that she does. So if you open a website and you're a great researcher, you too could get my $5 a month. She's so good. She's so good. She works very hard, and so many people are so good. I hear the Trumpists have a competing. Watch out, democracy. That's right. Watch out, democracy. Dang it. Don't even think about it, democracy. That's what it is, actually. Don't even think about it. All right. I've had time to metabolize the BS and more people. Yeah, I think so. I mean, what? Yeah. Boopy. Heading to the mechanic. Oh, well, I hope everything goes well at the mechanic. I hope you get a good treatment, good work. Yes, and EMDR helps. Yes. We really know how bad it would be this time in the mass hysteria. Yeah, so that's the thing, Carrie. Thank you for saying that, because that's the sense that I'm getting, is there's still a little mass hypnosis. Now, I still think that there will be far more votes for Kamala than there will be for Trump. So I'm not actually worried about that so much. But I think that it's just such a there's a bit of a fervor and a push on audiences. Like my algorithm is pushing all of the messaging to black men about Kamala being horrible. Oh, really? Her 60th? Oh, we're the same age. You live in a 70% rumpy district and you're seeing way less Trump. That's good. Well, damn inflation. No, I'm just kidding. Biden inflation. The Univision town hall was amazing. Yeah. So, yeah, we watch. Oh, I do have something about that interview, so we'll watch that too. It's basically people melting down. Okay, so but what I want to go is through this because she goes through I want to talk. I want to hear her go through the immunity filing. I know this is a week or so out, but I think it's still good information. And I haven't seen this yet, but I think it's going to be good. So that's what I'm going to play it. Let me put it over here. Oh, 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 yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, well, that's not what I wanted to do, but thank you anyway. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Oh, it's 37. We might not watch the whole thing, but I kinda wanna
Welcome
hear
to
this.
Talking Feds One-on-One. Deep dive discussions with national
Sydney's
figures
sitting on
about
his
the most
shoulder.
fascinating and consequential issues defining our culture and shaping our lives. I'm your host, Harry Litman. When the brief
there
from
no
Jack
picture?
Smith, the
There's no picture.
165-page magnum opus, was suddenly published last week, people poured through it intensively to get all the nuggets of new information and bombshells, of which there were a few dozen in there. And you had a race of real focus to the big points in the brief. And then, since then, interestingly enough, because people have been waiting for this evidence in one form or another, including a trial, there hasn't been that much of a second look. And that's what I wanted to do today. Have a little bit of a survey of some important points that were maybe missed in the first time around, as people, including me, were very quickly foraging. And to do it, we have really the perfect person, Marcy Wheeler, known to many of you, but she's long been known by the handle emptywheel. She's an independent journalist specializing in national security and civil liberties. She writes at her blog, Emptywheel, publishes in many outlets, including Motherboard, The New Republic, and Al Jazeera, and appears frequently on TV and radio, and is the author of Anatomy of Deceit, a primer on the CIA leak investigation. But above all those things, she is particularly, I think, meticulous, thorough, a dogged, almost forensic investigator, is so the perfect person to just ask about what else is out there besides the big headline items that we already knew. So, Marcy Wheeler, thanks very much for joining.
Really great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I have a couple, I think, items that have been underreported, but let's start with you. You've given a pretty in-depth deep dive on this document. What are some of the items that seem to have not gotten all the attention they deserve the way things unfolded?
I think the way in which Steve Bannon is included, right? So Steve Bannon wasn't in either the original indictment or the superseding indictment. We actually hadn't heard from him at all. And then all of a sudden he shows up somewhere between 10 and 15 times in the brief. Now, people can go to the New York Times. Alan Foyer and Charlie Savage did a good description of the kinds of ways he shows up. But to my mind, one of the most important things about it is he is described right from the start as a co-conspirator. So we're used to, like, when we first got the indictment, there were 6 co-conspirators, Rudy Giuliani and a bunch of other people. The superseding indictment was largely about getting rid of Jeffrey Clark because John Roberts said they had to. And they didn't shift around the numbers.
Let me I'll just quickly interrupt. Most of our listeners know that, but Jeff Clark was the man who would be king at the DOJ, and all those interactions, the Supreme Court said, would be core duties, thinking about investigating anybody. And so the superseding indictment just excised that whole chapter of one of sort of 6 from the narrative.
And so what we saw with the superseding indictment was, as you said, we just get rid of everything having to do with Jeffrey Clark, anyone at DOJ, almost all of Trump's White House aides, conversations with Bill Barr, all of those go because John Roberts says that's what you need to exclude. They did a couple of other things with the indictment. They shored up, given the Fisher opinion from the Supreme Court, the limitation of obstruction 18 U.S.C. 1512c2 to something having to do with documentary, evidentiary impairment. So they shifted the focus slightly on the vote certifications, which is something we're seeing in the crime scene people as well. They're trying to sustain 13 cases so far from crime scene people who have been
Jen.
charged with obstruction, and that's always going to be about these certifications. And in Trump's case, it's a lot easier to sustain that because of the fake electors, right? So we know he was involved in that. And so you can say he was trying to impair the evidence about who actually won the election.
During the oral argument for that case, which people were somewhat anticipating the Supreme Court would reverse, Fisher being one of the many marauders that day, they had a very fine-grained argument about statutory interpretation. But there was, at the oral argument by Justice Jackson, a suggestion, look, even under this, the interpretation the majority seems to be going for and did eventually embrace, what it means is you have to impair evidence. Now, the paradigm of that would be taking a piece of paper to the shredder or Sandy Berger sticking it in his pocket. But the theory here, because Marcy, you did say it's straightforward, but there's going to be a fight, is that in his conspiratorial activities, Trump was looking to impair the integrity of evidence. What evidence? The actual genuine elector certificates, and those he was trying to impair, even though he didn't touch them. But there will be perhaps a fight when it comes back to the Supreme Court, possibly. And Jack Smith will have an ally there, it appears, in Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who seemed open to that suggestion and thought that the Fisher majority had gone too far.
Well, we're going to see on the Fisher stuff that crime scene people will probably go back up to the Supreme Court before Trump on that as
That's
well,
a good point,
for the same reason. And so just as one example, there's a crime scene guy, Matthew Loganville. I think it's before Amy Berman Jackson. And they're trying to sustain the charges against him because in December, he said, I want to burn the voter certifications. And he got into the Senate to actually, that's what he was trying to do. I want to burn the vote certifications. So they're generally only trying to preserve the case with people who knew about not just the vote certification, but the certificates themselves. And when they got inside, rushed to go do something about it. I suspect that they're trying to preserve a couple of crime scene cases that they would like to use against Trump as well. Loganville is somebody who his only felony, I think, was obstruction. So they're making the effort with him, but also because he's somebody who obviously was thinking about the certificates long before he broke into the Capitol that day. So that's just an example of where that argument's going to go.
So you've cited some pretty big stuff here, Bannon, and we'll get back to him in a moment. The sort of shoring up of the A2 claim, especially as it might relate to Trump, and that in other cases among the 1,000 or more that the DOJ is investigating.
And then the third one is they talk repeatedly about Mike Pence being Trump's. They say he's got two roles. He's the president of the Senate and he is Trump's running mate. And so one of the things in the brief that they want to bring in is discussions Mike Pence had with Trump about being his running mate. And they really lay into that hard. My impression, although I'm sure Trump's lawyers don't agree with me, but my impression is they do a better job at preserving the Pence argument than, for example, Eric Hirschman, who he's listed as person 9 in the brief. As he was in the January 6th committee reports, he was absolutely important for being somebody right at the core of all of these fights. The brief describes him as kind of the liaison with the campaign. And if they lose Eric Hirschman's testimony, his losing that might be as fatal as losing Mike Pence.
Yeah, and Hirschman, of course, is, as you say, is in this category of official White House counsels, and they excise much of it, but not all of those. They keep a few. And what was your sense, Marcy, that Pence is the biggest example, Hirschman's the other? They get rid of Clark because they sort of have to. The stuff with Pence and others, it's obviously going to be a real fight, probably
yeah.
the real fight. Do you think it's just their conclusion? We just really can't do without this evidence. We have to roll the dice on it. Or do you think they feel confident of the non-immunity argument that they made?
Well, in my opinion, and I invite you to totally disagree with me,
Yeah.
but in my opinion, the immunity ruling from Roberts sort of dodged whether he bought Blasingame.
And can you flesh that out a little?
Yeah. So Blasingame is the opinion from the DC Circuit that has not yet gone to the Supreme Court on whether or not Trump can be sued civilly. And the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, for example, are also being sued. And so that opinion at the DC Circuit, written by Sri Srinivasan, largely picked up what Mehta said. Mehta, of course, presided over the Oath Keepers cases and a bunch of the most violent assault defendants. But they both argued that the Constitution doesn't care about who becomes president. So you, as candidate for reelection, the incumbent president in his role as candidate is not entitled to presidential immunity at all. That is what the Blasingame held. And Roberts really dodged whether he bought that. He didn't invoke it. He didn't say, I rely on this. He, in treating some of the things that he vaguely knew about, didn't say, of course, this is campaign. If he decides he doesn't like Blasingame, and of course, Blasingame may go back before Supreme Court before this does, but if he doesn't buy that holding from Blasingame, and this matters especially in Trump's conversations with people in the states, right? The president has no role in counting the vote in states. And much of that remains in the document. Much of that is, we're going to call people in Arizona and harangue them about counting more votes. And Roberts seemed to nod to say the president under Take Care Clause has an interest in making sure that the election is conducted fairly. Now, one of the things that Jack Smith did in his brief, which I thought was almost humorous after a while, was say, you don't call the House leader in Arizona to do something about the vote because he's not involved. Doug Ducey's not involved. Why didn't you call the same people in Michigan? You talked to Mike Shirkey in Michigan instead of talking to Jocelyn Benson in Michigan, who's in charge of overseeing the vote count. And so they really get into distinguishing, you weren't calling the people who you would call if you cared about the vote, except in Georgia, because those people were Republicans. And you never raised any concerns about all the Republicans who also got elected in the same elections that you said were fraudulent. So there's this interesting logical argument about who he was calling, but the larger argument is in that role, he is doing that as a candidate. And so as a candidate under Blasingame, but not necessarily under the immunity ruling, as a candidate, that's not entitled to any kind of immunity at all. And so that's the base level assumption that goes into Jack Smith. If John Roberts doesn't buy that on the next go around, they're going to throw it out entirely, because that is where a lot of this comes in, including, as I said, a lot of the, there are conversations with Mike Pence where they're saying this is Donald Trump talking to his running mate.
Yeah. And, on that, I want to talk about each of your 3 points because I think they are all really important and trenchant, and they were kind of on my bingo card as well. One quick point about where Roberts will be on the DC Circuit and Blasingame is to just note we have one other, piece of evidence here, which is, and I can just say, Marcy, this might be more up my alley than yours because I clerked up there, but it is stunning that that memo from him leaked and that it had a really scathing treatment of the DC Circuit immunity opinion, which I think most of us thought was fairly solid, bipartisan, thorough, and he just savaged it. So it might certainly indicates he won't be afraid to go the other way. Just a few sort of follow-on comments about each of those points. Bannon, it's really, you're right, he appears at the very end as, along with Giuliani, the kind of impresario here. Trump, a general theme is kicking out everybody who won't tell him what he wants to know. But Bannon makes that comment in his podcast about how hell's going to break loose or whatever he says. And we now know that wasn't casual, but really was the product of not just consultation, but maybe even direction on his part with the president. Fair enough?
Yeah, I think to my mind, and this is, I invite you to explain this because you'll do it better than me, is it's not just that Bannon's all over the document, it's that he is treated as a co-conspirator, meaning they want to and expect to rely on a hearsay exception to be able to introduce some comments that Bannon made. And if you look
Do you
very
think they're gonna
closely,
make
some of
Bannon
the things
flip?
that show up in there from Bannon, which were new. So, for example, Bannon tells Boris Epstein,
Because he will.
oh, Trump is going to fire his real campaign team and put Rudy in charge, and you're going to report to Rudy. And Bannon knew that before anybody else.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
those are Boris Epstein texts. So they could come in that way because Epstein is being treated as co-conspirator 6.
And by the way, I should also add about your point of a candidate. That is the recasting of the whole thing, right? Paragraph 1 had said Donald Trump was president of the United States and now says he was a candidate in 2020 and he lost. Just very quickly
Which is
on
true.
the evidence points, there are two big exceptions. And you're
I think
saying
they
that's
did a good
going to
job
be
of distinguishing
any
that.
statement that Trump made, as you probably know, is defined under the rules as non-hearsay. Doesn't, so if Cassidy Hutchinson said, I heard Trump say X, Cassidy says, Trump says would seem like hearsay, but in fact, that's admissible. And likewise, any statement by a co-conspirator in furtherance of the conspiracy is also coming in. So we don't have to have an evidence exam for the listeners here, but just know that this is a granular treatment in 165 pages. And at every statement, they've not only considered what is the defense to immunity, but also how are we getting this in? This is our trial. This is what we're going to present. So I just think the theme with Bannon was really important, just, and it's part and parcel of he's not talking with Epstein or, certainly not Cipollone or Philbin, but the real team crazy is in charge. Then second, I just want to say the state stuff, I think, is the main area that's not just recast, but bulked up. So we now see Trump as actually having a driving sort of impresario role in this state stuff. They take away everything from DOJ, and that's the one thing they enhance. And there are 6 of them, and they go through it, maybe the longest part of the brief. I didn't know before, I don't know if you did, there was a call to the Pennsylvania delegation that he is overhearing. And just in general, he's taking a much more active role. And then finally on Pence, this is the thing I noticed most because I had anticipated, others had, that this is really where it's going to be. And to kind of give a hypothetical answer to the question I posed to you, Marcy, recently, I thought they had just decided, okay, we'll do without Clark. Okay, we'll recast the White House counsel, but we got to have Pence. In any event, it could be a year or more, right, of going up and down. They hope only once, but with Pence, but they're ready to pay that. And we all saw immediately that the special counsel took a hint from Roberts to say, anytime the vice president has a constitutional role with the Senate and he opens the envelopes, it's not at all what Trump or Eastman or Chesbro thought, but there's a role. Anytime they're talking about that might be official, as the Supreme Court said, but isn't immune because it wouldn't, the analysis goes, infringe on the authority and functions of the executive branch because this is Pence acting in that role. I'll just say, but let me ask you your opinion on this, and then I want to come back to something else on Pence. It ain't obvious, right? I mean, the fact that in some ways they are contemplating what his role and how he would handle it, private lunches, 3 of them, conversations off the Oval Office, Trump talking to his vice president, second in command. The mere fact that the subject matter has to do with Pence's role in the Senate, to me, is not going to automatically bring it home. Do you have thoughts?
I think they do 2 things. One is there's this famous footnote 3 in the immunity decision, which Anna Bowers wrote a super great, long, deep post on if people want to read about it. But it basically, Amy Coney Barrett is like, I agree with most of this opinion, except how are we going to prosecute bribery? Because you need evidence. the Roberts opinion basically says you can't use official acts at all. You have to throw them out,
Right.
which is what,
Even as
which is what,
evidence, right?
yeah. And Amy Coney Barrett says, well, you need to be able to, because otherwise, how are you going to ever prosecute bribery? And so, in this weird footnote that no one has been able to make sense of, Roberts is like, well, you can use stuff that's in the public record. And I'm not claiming that I can make sense of that any better than anyone else. Go read the Anna Bowers thing. But one of the things they do all through their discussion of Pence's conversations with Trump is they also cite his memoir. And so one of the things they're
Pence's
saying,
memoir.
yeah, Pence's memoirs, one of the things they're saying is Pence chose to make this public. He chose to make this public irrespective of executive privilege, irrespective of the role that he played. I mean, some of the other stuff in the memoir probably is official acts, but Pence chose to make this public. And so would that get you to a footnote 3 exception for Pence? I have no idea, but I suspect, I mean, they don't mention footnote 3 at all in the brief, in the immunity filing, but you know, I suspect one of the reasons they do carry out that parallel citation is to show for, I'd say, about 75% of the claims, they're not relying just on Pence's testimony. They're also relying on stuff that he put in his book.
Yeah. And I just want to say this part of the Supreme Court opinion, which is there's just no way around it being a little elliptical. But this part about Pence, it's official because they're talking, but it may be overcome, is particularly Delphic. And it's going to fall to Chutkin to try to adjudicate in the first instance, knowing that, you know, the soft hammer of the DC Circuit is above her and they're worried about the Supreme Court, and the big hammer of the Supreme Court is there. And she's got to do her best. But even leaving aside, you know, right, wrong, politics, et cetera, it's just damn hard to figure out what the hell they're saying, especially here.
And I would imagine that the audience of this is Supreme Court, which is why, by the way, I'm just puzzled that they described the Brooks Brothers riot as a violent riot or whatever they did. The Brooks Brothers riot, people may remember in 2000, there's vote counting going on in Florida, and Roger Stone and some other people organize a bunch of people in Oxford shirts to try and threaten the vote count.
Rent a mob, it was called at the time.
Mob, right? But it's called the Brooks Brothers riot because everyone was nicely dressed. And
good Republicans.
It was the model for, and they even described this, Mike Roman at the TCF Counting Center in Detroit.
We're now back in 2020. Yeah, okay.
Now in 2020, one of the Michigan-based lawyers was like, things are getting a little wild here at the TCF Counting Center, and Roman was like, great. Cause a riot.
Let them riot.
Let them riot. Yeah. They invoke, and we learned that in December, by the way, which tells you interesting things about ongoing investigations. But for many people, it was new. And they include this description of the Brooks Brother riot as something violent. And I was like, how are the 3 justices on the Supreme Court, Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, going to feel about the description? Because that puts them in the position of the wacky lawyer. It puts them in...
They having all worked on the 2000...
They're in the Eastman role, basically.
Yeah,
they're the ones saying you have to count the way George W. Bush wants you to count.
As lawyers, we should
As lawyers.
Emphasize,
they're the lawyers, not the rioters, but they're just in the same role that Eastman or Chesborough are, which is they're making these crazy, or frankly, Rudy Giuliani. And I'm stunned by that, because I think that, like, wouldn't that give you some hostility among the 3 justices? You might try to be, like, obviously you're trying to peel off Amy Coney Barrett, and the 2 most likely are Kavanaugh or Roberts. And you then remind them that in 2000, they were in the Eastman Rudy Giuliani role.
Although when you say that, I'm put in mind of the line, you know, history repeats itself. The first time is tragedy, the second time is farce. Because when you imagine Roberts, Kavanaugh, whatever, in 2020, and James Baker running the show, and now you have, that's in 2000, and now you have in 2020, Rudy Giuliani, I guess, or Cannon in the Baker role.
I don't know a lot.
And these total team crazy, now disbarred lawyers, the only ones left on the street playing the roles by the previous justices.
So I think they're doing 2 things with Pence. One is they're trying to make an argument about these 2 roles that Pence plays. They're trying to make an argument to the footnote 3. But the other thing I think they're trying to do, again, trying to peel off 2 justices, Amy Coney Barrett and one other person, is to, like, in the discussions about immunity, the hypothetical was, could Joe Biden order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate Donald Trump? Right? As president, he could do that. Would he have immunity? And the justices tried to avoid that inconvenient hypothetical. But where you get to with Pence is, could Donald Trump effectively get Mike Pence assassinated? Effectively try to get Mike Pence. And one of the things they've added, and this is, I think, a dirty little dodge, this I don't think will survive. They quote what is understood to be Nick Luna, who was Trump's body man turned in charge of something. And as soon as he learns that the Secret Service has rushed Mike Pence out from the Senate to a secure location to protect him from this mob of people shouting, "Hang Mike Pence," he rushes in, tells Trump, and Trump says, "So what?" Trump says, of as the vice president, as people are screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," so what? Now, they're not trying to introduce that Nick Luna comment. They're saying, we're just doing this to contextualize the famous tweet where, as this mob was overtaking the Capitol, Trump by himself, sitting in the dining room without help from any of his aides, tweets out, Mike Pence didn't have the courage, which did inflame the mob and did really put Pence at risk for being assassinated. And they include this Nick Luna thing to get to Trump's motive.
Which is, by the way, a perfectly proper theory of admissibility, context of an otherwise admissible statement.
But it's an official, it's like Nick Luna goes to him to say, do something as commander in chief to protect Mike Pence. And Donald Trump, as somebody who's trying to steal an election, says, so what? Screw Mike Pence. And so I don't know how that's going to work, but I do think that one of the things they're trying to do as this goes back is to point to the absurdity and really just the grotesque implications of this, which is that the president of the United States can have executed another constitutionally elected officer, who, by the way, is also immune, with complete immunity. And so that's my take on what they tried to do with Mike Pence, which is that when it goes back, somebody at the Supreme Court, in addition to Amy Coney Barrett, is going to say, this is beyond the pale. And by then, if it gets back, right, it's not going to go back if Donald Trump wins the election.
Wait.
It's only going to go.
I subvert thee to the depth and breadth and height my trolls can reach. I like this Shakespeare.
Back if Donald Trump loses. And so already there's going to be, I think, less inclination to do something extremist, because at that point, you're not protecting Donald Trump anymore, unless he, of course, launches another.
Of course, they say they were writing for the ages, protecting future presidents, but that seems hard to believe. But just to your point, there is one thing in there that we've always sort of inferred, but they now are alleging as part of their evidence that struck me. It's on page 75, and the citation is only to the video of the speech on the elites. But here's what they say. When the defendant took the stage to speak to supporters, he knew that Pence had refused once and for all to use the fraudulent elector certificates. He also knew he had only one last hope to prevent the certification, the large and angry crowd standing in front of him. So for more than an hour, he delivered a speech designed to inflame his supporters. And in particular, and this really is just odious, he knows Pence isn't going there. And he doesn't say, Pence is terrible, he betrayed us. He said, if Pence comes through, we'll be okay. Knowing that they will learn shortly that he won't come through, and their last hopes are crushed, and they will be, murderous with rage. I mean, that really is pretty close to, trying to get him off. And that seemed implicit before, but now they're going back to what he knew and when he knew it. And to me, that's a big point about Pence that people haven't seen. And then something else, and you touched on it, Marcy, is that there's going to be a real fight, an interesting one, about deference. So the court says context is really going to matter and all these things. And we have oodles of context here. For instance, what you just said, the context of telling him about Pence by an official actor, et cetera. Now, typically one defers to a district court's factual determination, but the reason for it is The district court is there, observes the witnesses and the like. We are still sort of at the allegation stage. It's all on paper. And the question really will be for the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. You can imagine an aggressive court saying, we don't have to defer to this. We can read the blank pages as well as anyone else. And she says, accepts Smith's view that this is based on context where we are, but we don't. So that would be a sort of huge tussle ahead. The other point I just wanted to make about Pence is, in keeping with this being a very granular and detailed statement by statement exposition, he's got Smith alternate theories on Pence. Everyone mentions the one about the Senate, as you did. No one except you does mention the point about they're just acting as candidates. I think it's true that we do have statements in the law about a candidate. The Constitution is indifferent who the president is. So if you're really a candidate, that doesn't matter. But are they candidates when they're, that'll be a real question. And then there's sort of belt suspenders and what do you have
Can
in
they
Ireland?
divide a
What's the third way to hold
conversation
pants up?
into
But
Oh,
parts?
I wouldn't know what they're called.
braces.
I can't even say the word Lori properly. So
Braces. Anyway,
that's right. That's it. Braces, I think.
yeah. The point about certain conversations being private because that go to Pence because Trump orders the White House counsel out of the room, and what could be an easier demonstration, says Jack Smith. So the overall point to make, and you made it generally, is they are hedging their bets. And if the Supreme Court really wants to strip Pence completely from this indictment when it comes back to them, they're going to have more work to do than simply refuting the Article 2 theory of his role there. They're going to have to make the kind of fine-grained factual decisions about clear error or whatever that typically they don't do. And typically what they do is let that smaller stuff pass. But in that case, Smith could be left with, even after an aggressive Supreme Court ruling against him, 2, 3, statements by Pence. And there's also the book theory and maybe stuff by a lawyer or two, et cetera. So I think on this all important focus, they are hedging their bets.
There are two other weak parts, though. One is, I told you about the tweet. 224, he sends out the tweet. Mike Pence didn't have. And they did incredible work with tweets, but they also plan to rely on Dan Scavino's testimony. And this is, I think, one of two weak points in this argument. Dan Scavino is a White House employee. They describe vaguely that he was also volunteering on the campaign. They say that Scavino never really distinguished whether he was writing tweets for the campaign or for the White House. They say, some tweets were RT'd onto the POTUS Twitter account and some were not. And in fact, one of the most important reasons why they went to Twitter to get his content was not for the DMs, which is what everyone focuses on. They wanted to make sure that they could attribute, they wanted to make sure who was basically holding the loaded gun. They wanted to make sure that they had proof that only Trump and Dan Scavino had access to the account. They wanted to make sure there were no other accounts coming in and logging in and sending tweets out. They wanted to put literally the loaded gun aiming at Mike Pence in Donald Trump's hands, sitting alone in that dining room. Now, they're relying on
I get the nerd former evidence professor in me just can't resist saying there's such a thing called an adoptive admission, which if Trump lets Scavino write these things and sees it and doesn't do anything, that itself would have the status in the evidence code of an admission, same as if Trump had made it. Sorry, I couldn't hold back.
But,
go ahead.
But then you get into, and I think one of the things they do, and then I'll get into the other second weak point, is they try and strip out any White House assistance with tweets, comments by Trump, because then they become official. So, for example, there are some tweets he sent out later where he was Commander-in-Chief, go home, be peaceful. They're like, these, we think they're not official anyway, but we're not gonna rely on them. We're only gonna rely on this Mike Pence tweet. But they still are relying on Dan Scavino being in this sort of hybrid role. And I expect Trump's lawyers to go after
Carla.
and claim that Scavino, Scavino was the deputy chief of staff, right? So that's official. how can you kind of hybridize Dan Scavino? The one other place where I think they've got a big hole is Stephen Miller, who is not mentioned at all in this entire document. But of course, if you read the January 6th committee report, is the one who makes the last edits. So the attacks on Pence are in the speech. The attacks on Pence are taken out, it sounds like, based on Eric Hirschman's intervention. And then after Pence says, no, I'm not going to help you, they put those attacks back in. And they say in there, almost all of the work on the speech was done on people's private emails, but not the last edits. And the last edits would have been Stephen Miller's. And you can see how Trump's lawyers are going to be like, well, this was Trump's official speechwriter changing the speech on his White House account at the last minute. And, this is, so that's another little area of wiggle room where they just don't, in fact, maybe they use the passive voice, which is a big glaring sign, that I think he says Trump ordered the speech to be changed, but the people who did the change are White House people, and they just don't do the kind of analysis they do with Eric Hirschman and Dan Scavino. And so I think that that's another area where Trump's lawyers are going to really attack this.
Marcy Wheeler, I suspect a large fraction of our audience hasn't accompanied us all the way here, but the ones who have, this has been just, not just a really valuable deep dive, but one that I think just isn't out there, which I got to say is part of your trademark. So thanks very much. I hope you'll come back, and I hope those that are here really appreciate and bring home these real.
Oh, we love these two. We love Harry. We love Marcy. Follow at emptywheel, all one word, on Twitter. Really amazing website, amazing everything. We have more. Don't go anywhere because we have more. Okay. Let's see. Let me get this, and then, gosh, I think my mic is. Maybe my cords are bad or something. I don't know. All right. So I wanted to read this. I found this from the Brennan Center for Justice. Oops, I'm sorry. I'll make that bigger. Forgive me. Forgive me, my darling. Forgive me. Forgive me, my darling. Forgive me. Oh, forgive me. Oh, forgive me. Okay, you need to stop. That needs to stop. Okay. Hold on. Boop. Yeah, smash the like and subscribe. Media literacy, bitches. Media literacy is sexy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Okay, I found this Brennan Center article from September. Well, I can't. Let me see what date. Whatever happened to Brad Parscale? I think. Well, I have a great collage of Brad. I'll post that, Jim. That's a great idea. I'll post that on Twitter. I made a collage a couple years ago when he got arrested for domestic violence, which I hope everybody's okay. But yeah, he actually was part of the current campaign team. So Brad was back, okay? But I think he was sidelined. Corey Lewandowski was fired, basically, and put in charge of New Hampshire, which, is basically being fired. I love New Hampshire, but let's be real. Oops. Anyway, okay, I want to read this. Sorry. Sorry. Make it a little easier to read. Boop. Boop, boop. There we go. Boop. Perfect. All right, so this is, as I said, Brennan Center for Justice. Ugh. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I can. Ah, that's too big. That's too big. Okay. Pavement face. Oh, yeah. I got to find that. I'll find that collage. It'll take a minute, but I'll find it. Okay. So along the lines of what they were just talking about, the superseding indictment that we were all waiting for, that I haven't read the whole thing yet, and that's terrible. I got to do that. That's my fault. Bad, Lolo. Anyway. But I wanted to follow up what they were saying with this this article by Joyce Vance in the Brennan Center for Justice. Oh, I'm sorry. It's October 15th, 2024. For some reason, I thought it was a September, but that's okay. Fine. No problem. No problem. Okay, so let's see. You can't really see that. Let me make it a little bigger. Okay, and then I'll make it a little bigger. Okay, there we go. A little better. You can follow along for those of you who like to do that. You fell? Did you really fall, Jim? Don't be dad joking me right now if you're really hurt. I want you to be okay. Share. Oh, do you believe in life after love? Boom, boom. I don't know what the words are to this part. I really want something to come into my brain. Oh, oh, I'm Cher, damn it. Oh my God, you guys, I'm going to the thrift store today to get my outfit for Halloween, for the Halloween show next week. Oh, you guys do not want to miss this show. You do not want to miss this show, please. Okay? Promise? Like, you can catch it on the rerun. You don't have to come to the live, but you don't want to miss it. Yeah, sure. Share this bitch. But I have such a show planned for you. I hope you're gonna love it. Yeah. But I'm not gonna be Cher. That's a hint. No, it's what am I supposed to do? Maybe I should be an impersonator. Yeah, I have all the pieces in my head picked out like visual. So I'm going to go in search of today, maybe tomorrow, for the pieces at thrift stores. Because I definitely don't want to pay top dollar for this. No, it's not going to be worn again, probably. So, thrift store it is. Anyway, okay, let's read this. And then I have more for you. You're not going anywhere. I have more. I have more this morning. I know. It's crazy. It's an embarrassment of bitches. Okay, here we go. Special Counsel Jack Smith's Washington, D.C. prosecution of Donald Trump for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss is back. After months of waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on Trump's presidential immunity argument. Hi, Paulina! I was just talking about you this morning. I wanted to make sure you're okay. Ooh, that's nice. Carrie, that's one I wanted to listen to, too. Yeah, Mueller, she did a podcast where she walks through the indictment. I'm going to have to listen to that. Maybe we can listen to that later. I don't know. I don't know how she feels about restreaming stuff. Yeah, Paulina, I just wanted to make sure everything was okay, because I know that I believe you were out of the area when the storm hit your home, but I just wanted to make sure you were okay post-storm, and I hadn't seen a lot of posts, and I haven't been on Twitter that much, so that's probably a me thing. But anyway, just know that I was, yeah. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. All right, so we're reading about the superseding indictment. You got it, girlfriend. Let's see. After months, this is a Joyce Vance piece, by the way, in the Brennan Center for Justice. All the links for the stuff that we watch or I read will be in the description within a couple of hours after the end of the show. So if you want to just refer back to links that we discussed, you can go there. And I'll probably update it when I do it, because there's a lot of good stuff in here, I think. You never know. I think so. All right. After months of waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on Trump's presidential immunity argument, then weeks of grappling with the fallout from the shocking decision granting former presidents broad protection from criminal prosecution for official acts, Smith's opening move was to return to the grand jury for a superseding indictment at the end of August. The new charges removed all references to Trump's interactions with the Justice Department personnel, actions that the Supreme Court explicitly said fell within the scope of core presidential immunity, meaning Trump could not be charged for them. Oh my gosh, your puppy. Oh, that's not a puppy anymore. Judge Tanya Chutkan, the goddess, set a briefing schedule, and on September 26, Smith filed. The goddess part wasn't in there. Smith filed his opening brief on the question of whether any of the charges of the superseding indictment or the evidence he wanted to use to prove them were barred by the Supreme Court's new rules for presidential immunity. Smith argued that none of it was out of bounds. When the brief was unsealed a week later, Trump took to social media to accuse the special counsel of foul play, alleging that Smith had strategically timed the brief to sway voters in the lead up to the election. Trump called it election interference, and he will likely continue to do so as he objects to Judge Chutkan's latest decision to also unseal the appendices Smith attached to his brief. But Trump's claims lack any merit. Judge Chutkan heard the parties' arguments and established the order of the brief so she could efficiently develop the detailed factual record the Supreme Court ordered her to complete. Trump had already filed his motion to dismiss the case based on presidential immunity. That motion was the subject of the appeal to the Supreme Court. On remand, it made sense for Smith to lay out his arguments first so Trump could respond to them, and Trump offered no justification for additional delay. With Judge Chutkan's jurisdiction restored after the Supreme Court issued its mandate, it was time to get back to work. Yeah, I hope you're okay, Jim. Smith's position is that most of the indictment is about unofficial conduct. It is about candidate Trump, not President Trump. If Judge Chutkan agrees, Smith will be able to go forward with this portion of his case because Supreme Court held that personal conduct is not protected by immunity. Can I just say, I love how Joyce writes. It is so straightforward. I just really appreciate that woman. Can I say that? God bless you, Joyce Vance. Please come on my show. Well, I don't know. I'd have to figure out what to ask you. But I would ask my smart friends to help me come up with some questions. But Joyce Vance, I figured out how to get guests on my show. So you should come and be a guest on my show. Because I have questions. I would come up with really good questions. I would ask the people in the chat. And we would come up with it would be fun too. There'd be a soundboard. Like, you get a rim shot once in a while. Come on now. Okay. Sorry. That's my ad. That's my Midas touch ad. I guess. Kind of. Okay. Smith's position is that most of the indictment, just a scrape on the left side of my face. Oh my God. Jim. Be careful. Smith's position is that most of the indictment is about unofficial conduct. The duck? That's what made me laugh. Is that... I need a duck sound, huh? I don't have a duck sound on the soundboard. I'm sorry, but I really hear a buzzing. It might be me. Okay. If Chutkan agrees, Smith will be able to go forward. Okay. Smith took a different tack when it came to the charges involving Vice President Mike Pence. He argued that although communications between Trump and Pence were official conduct, they were not the type of core conduct that the court held was always immune. Instead, he argued that they fell within the category of other official conduct that is only presumed to be immune. However, that presumption can be overcome if the government shows that prosecution will not impair the functioning of the presidency. Smith argued it will not in this case. Indeed, a failure to prosecute a president who tries to hold on to power by corrupting his vice president into a conspiracy would seem to damage the presidency far more than permitting such a prosecution to proceed. Now that Jack Smith has made it clear his position that everything in the superseding indictment is fair game, it will be up to Trump's team to persuade the judge that any of the charges or evidence run afoul of presidential immunity. You might expect that Trump would be eager to explain why Smith's arguments are in error, but that is not the case. Instead, his lawyers asked Judge Chutkan to push the due date for their response, originally slated for October, to November 21st. They asked for permission to file an additional response known as a surreply on December 19th. Trump, as the party moving to dismiss, is entitled to have the last word here. What kind of monster puppy, Jim? Judge Chutkan ultimately gave Trump's team some, but not all, of the additional time they asked for making their response due on November 7th. Oh, shit. Just after the election. Smith's reply is due on November 21st. Trump's surreply for the final brief in the sequence is due on December 5th. The issue will be ripe for Judge Chutkan to decide at this point unless she decides oral argument or testimony is necessary. An irregular briefing sequence. Usually, when a defendant files a motion to dismiss, they file the first brief, although that's the typical path. In this case, the government asked to go first, and Judge Chutkan decided there were good reasons to allow it. That irregular procedure became a focal point for complaints by Trump and his team. But trial judges have broad discretion to conduct their cases, and given that Trump still gets to file the final brief, there is no conceivable prejudice. The Supreme Court returned the case to Judge Chutkan with directions to develop a full factual record and make rulings on immunity. Her decisions will be subject to another round of appellate review before the case can proceed to trial. Judge Chutkan favored the efficiency of having Trump respond to Smith's arguments. Had Trump gone first, he would simply have been guessing at Smith's position. And the government had made it clear that it preferred to deal with all the immunity arguments in one fell swoop, so there would be only one more round of appeals, not piecemeal, endless process. English setter. Oh, I like setters. We had an Irish setter when I was little. Trump also complained that the judge permitted Smith to file a significantly longer brief than the rules usually allow. That argument is uncompelling. The thorough factual record the Supreme Court required means that Smith must methodically cover all the charges in the case and the evidence he will use to prove them. Had he been less thorough, Trump would likely have strenuously objected to the inclusion of anything he did not set forth at this stage. The Supreme Court set Judge Chutkan a task, and both she and Smith are doing their best to comply. The judge gave Trump the same number of pages for his response, 180, that she authorized Smith to use in his brief. The judge is trying to do what the court directed her to do in the most efficient manner possible. That may be contrary to Trump's desire to delay the case ad infinitum, but there's no substantive flaw in the process Judge Chutkan is using. In fact, most defendants would be delighted to have the prosecution's entire case laid out for them. That's what I thought. This seems like a real... Oh, smart and sweet. I know, like your wife. Jim, stop. Ay. As Smith did for Trump in his brief, along with ample space to respond. Allegations of election interference. Instead, Trump is calling the special counsel's brief election interference, accusing Smith of trying to influence voters by laying out the evidence and charges in the case as the Supreme Court directed. This doesn't make a lot of sense. Americans watched Trump's effort to interfere with the outcome of the election unfold, and Trump has frequently commented on them himself. While there may be more specifics in Smith's brief, the basics are well known, and Trump possesses a big public megaphone that he has not hesitated to use to respond to the allegations against him and accuse the special counsel of misconduct. I should take a little sip of coffee. Yummy. The Justice Department has an internal policy, a so-called 60-day rule that is an unwritten requirement that prosecutors avoid taking steps that could affect an election. The rule is understood to prevent a surprise indictment, search warrant, or public statement shortly before an election, if avoidable. In situations like those, the public might assume the worst and convict a candidate on the basis of speculation and gossip, costing them the election before they had their day in court. Here, Smith filed a brief in response to a date ordered by the court. That alone removes it from the type of conduct the rule is intended to address, voluntary actions taken by prosecutors. But beyond that, the contours of Trump's conduct are already well known, and new details are highly unlikely to influence the election. The House January 6 committee presented testimony about them, and Trump has relitigated them in rally after rally and frequent social media posts. It's ludicrous to suggest that Smith timed his brief, which followed a lengthy appellate delay he did not control, to interfere with the election. If so, Smith chose a poor vehicle, as a 165-page brief full of dense legal argumentation is not exactly meant for mass public consumption. In any event, it wasn't his call. The Supreme Court sent the case back to Judge Chutkan with orders for her to proceed and no indication that it contemplated a pre-election delay. Trump's complaints about the process are just another manifestation of his familiar legal strategy, delay. The judge must now determine what, if any, charges and evidence are barred by presidential immunity before the case can proceed. Trump's complaint about how she's doing that comes down to this. It is designed to move the case forward. That's the real objection. His team does not want the case to progress. They're complaining that Trump will have to face justice at the hands of a judge and a jury, and they're trying to prevent that from happening. But that's not a legitimate complaint. No defendant is entitled to put off his trial indefinitely simply because he wants to. As former acting Attorney General Sally Yates, we love her, said in a 2016 speech, our job is to seek justice in each and every case. That remains true even when Donald Trump is the defendant. Oh, Joyce Vance, we love you. Yes, we really, really do. You're really great. Let's look. Oh, you're so great. Love you. He did? Okay, I'm going to check my DMs. Oh, Joyce Vance, we love you. He warned you about, oh, yeah, that's right. You married a Greek princess. Well, you know, I don't know. She sounds like an incredibly lovely woman. So just what you've shared over the last couple of years that I've known you, she sounds really wonderful. I delight in your stories because I just think that really keeps hope alive, that there's people out there that are really can really appreciate it. I don't know. It's really a sweet story. Sweet story. All right, let's see. Let me go to my DMs. My diggity dog DMs. Holding on. Do. Oh. Teresa, you're a great person. And I think you're really great. Oh, I don't know. Nope. Okay, that's not. Nope. I want this. This is not going to be big enough, but I'm going to read it to you, so please just calm down. You're 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. That was a good musical. I was creepy as fuck, but it's a good musical. Sorry. I love you too, Teresa. All right, let me get this little thing on here. There it is. Here we go. This is Hat Tip Teresa in the chat because she's our breaking news queen. Put your crown on, queen. Give her a crown. She's the breaking news queen. Just in from Kyle Cheney. On the day, Chutkan plans to release a large cache of Jack Smith's evidence. Is that today? Where is that? Where is it? Did she do it yet? We want to look at it. Trump asked her to delay until November 14th. Where? Here, President Trump requests. Wait, no, we need the voice. I'm sorry. We're going to do the voice. I'm so sorry.
All right. I'm so sorry. Okay, just everybody calm down. Okay. Hi, SB. Okay. Here, President Trump requests only. Wait, let me see if I can make it bigger. Hold on. No, it doesn't wanna. It's like, I don't wanna. Oh, that's not working at all. Okay, that's it. Okay. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. Okay, wait. Here, President Trump requests only that the court briefly continue its existing stay of the order such that the redacted versions of the SC Appendix and President Trump's forthcoming appendix may be released concurrently. That's all. We just want to send everything at once. We want to save on postage. Okay? Okay, anyways. What else? Although this stay will not eliminate the harms President Trump identified in his prior opposition filings, whatevers, certain harms will be mitigated. For example, if the court immediately releases the special counsel's cherry-picked documents, potential jurors will be left with a skewed, one-sided, and inaccurate picture of this case. Your Honor, those same potential jurors may not see President Trump's later responsive filing. I mean, it'll be buried under junk mail, if that's still a thing. And even if some do, first impressions are prone to remain. They said that in a case in 1967, so you know it has to be true. That is especially so as this court's gag order, which makes me not talk about things I want to talk about, First Amendment, here we go, unconstitutionally restricts President Trump's ability to utilize First Amendment protected political speech to publicly comment on these proceedings, including the essay appeals, right? Conversely, if the appendices are released as simultaneously, at least some press outlets will attempt to report both sides of this case, reducing, because I'm all about the fairness doctrine now, okay? I'm all about it, because it says fair, so it's got to be fair. I could make it so. Although, again, not eliminating the potential for irreversible prejudice. I mean, really, they don't like me already, Your Honor. Do you know that? The evil demons in this D.C. Demon City. That's what it stands for. Demon City. Anyways, similarly, the risk to witnesses will be somewhat reduced because I won't threaten them at all. Yeah. As the public will have a more balanced picture of their testimony and how it connects to this case. Yeah, so there. So do it.
All right. Sorry. That was a lot. I realized that was a lot. I apologize. Let's see. Trump says he wants a chance to put his side of the story in the public domain. His would have come out today if he didn't ask for a 5-week delay. Okay, so I want to know. Oh, that's his motion. Okay, well, we'll link that too. What I want to know is where is the when's the data drop? When's Chutkin dropping the data? When's she releasing the Kraken? Do we know? I wanna know. Robin Hood, are they still around? Yikes. I wanna know if he really hurt me. I don't even know how to sing that. I was behind, howling at the voice. Sorry, Jay. I know. I just couldn't help myself. I know, the sooner the better. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Hold on. Oh, that's current. That's not current. Oh, wait. All right, here we go. 2 minutes ago, Kyle Griffin. Judge Tanya Chutkin says she rejects Trump's strained argument about his 2020 election lies. There's no reason to believe Trump's purported worries about foreign influence animated his concerns at the time. What the fuck is going on right now? Okay, wait. Is there something else? Is this the thread? Is this a thread? Is this a thread? Okay, wait. I'll put it on the screen. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be like hogging it. Okay, so this is from a few minutes ago. Oh no, it came as a great time. No, the whole morning's been hilarious, actually. If I do say so myself. Wait. Okay, let me see what this story is. Judge in January 6th rejects false claims, blah, blah, blah. Oh man, God, you guys are killing us with this stupid fucking web design GUI. Your GUI is all disgusting. Okay. There is no reason to believe that Trump's purported worries about foreign influence in the 2020 election animated his concerns at the time, Judge Tanya Chutkan wrote, adding that Trump's theories that such evidence would be relevant to his criminal case do not withstand scrutiny. Trump's team had asked Chutkan to compel prosecutors in special counsel Jack Smith's office to provide them with additional evidence, including all information about foreign interference and influence efforts in the 2020 election. It's part of the Trump team's attempt to present Trump's concerns about mass voter fraud, which were roundly rejected by independent arbiters and courts as reasonable and grounded in reality. The defense has maintained that Trump's false election claims were, quote, plausible and maintained in good faith and not unreasonable at the time, even though many January 6 defendants have since lamented that they were gullible enough to believe Trump's lies, like Trump's false claim on January 6 that 139% of voters had cast ballots in the majority black city of Detroit. Chutkan pushed back on Trump's claims Wednesday in an order. Ooh, we want that. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, 50 pages. All right, well, we'll have to lift weights to do that. Okay. But we'll get a good summary here. Here we go. Chutkan pushed back on Trump's claims Wednesday in an order that rejected all but 3 of his 14 categories of requests for additional evidence. About his requests for evidence on foreign interference, Chutkan noted that the claims of election fraud Trump made as part of the alleged criminal conspiracy were totally unrelated to foreign cyber attacks, pointing to language in the superseding indictment that states that Trump's allegations of fraud revolved around his false claims that, quote, large numbers of dead, non-resident, non-citizen, or otherwise ineligible voters had cast ballots or that voting machines had changed votes. At best, this is a quote, defendant might attempt to use information about these network breaches to argue that because of generic foreign cyber attacks unrelated to election results, he had reason to worry that foreign adversaries would interfere in the 2020 election, which in turn somehow gave him a good faith basis to claim that domestic actors had perpetrated outcome determinative election fraud in non-cyber attack forms, Chutkan wrote. That logic is too strained to meet defendant's burden. A federal grand jury returned a superseding indictment in August, charging that Trump schemed to use a campaign of, quote, unsupported, objectively unreasonable, and ever-changing claims of voter fraud to overturn his election loss and maintain his presidency. Trump has pled not guilty to the 4 charges against him: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. Trump's state of mind is essential to the case, and Smith's team has alleged that Trump knew, quote, his election lies were false. Chutkan also rejected Trump's request for evidence on undercover agents and individuals. Fedsurrection. Hashtag. Woo. Undercover agents and individuals acting at the direction of official authorities at the Capitol on January 6. A request that aligns with the false flag narrative promoted by some conspiracy theorists, including some Republican members of Congress. Yes, I know, about January 6. Let's see. Trump, she wrote, does not provide anything more than speculation that there even were any such undercover actors at the Capitol on January 6, and that there was no reason to compel the government to search for and produce that information. Chutkan also rejected Trump's request for communications by, quote, members, relatives, or associates of the Biden administration, saying the sweepingly broad and undefined request utterly fails to meet the rigorous standard required for Trump to be able to make a selective prosecution claim. God, they're still arguing that. The judge said that Trump was entitled to 3 categories of information: materials reviewed by former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe before his interview with the government, records about security measures that were conveyed to Trump during a meeting with General Mark Milley, then chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, which can someone please protect? I know. It's okay. Isn't it okay if it came from yesterday? I didn't read it. I mean, yeah. Is it okay? I mean, is everybody okay with it? Or is it old news? I don't know. This is helping me. I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh, wait. Where was I? I'm almost done. Oh, it's Ryan Riley. Ugh. Gross. Sorry. You know me and my opinions. Let's see. Where am I? The judge said that Trump was entitled to 3 categories of information: materials reviewed by former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe before his interview with the government, records about security measures that were conveyed to Trump during a meeting with General Mark Milley, then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller. Oh, that's good. Let's nail Chris Miller. He'll flip like a pancake. And evidence related to the unauthorized retention of classified documents by former Vice President Mike Pence, which Trump's team could use to potentially undermine Pence's credibility if he were to testify. The Justice Department declined to press charges against Pence in the classified documents case. The Supreme Court gutted part of Smith's case over the summer with its ruling. Okay, turning towards a potential trial. Earlier in the day, Smith's team submitted a filing arguing that Trump bears responsibility for the January 6th attack at the Capitol, saying Trump willfully caused his supporters to obstruct an attempt to obstruct the certification of President Joe Biden's blah, blah, blah. In a statement, Trump campaign Stephen Chung, he's an idiot, crazed liberals throughout the derp state are freaking out at Trump standing in the 2020. That's it. This is all about the Rasmussen polls. That's what it is. Anyway. All right, thank you for indulging me on that. I appreciate it because I had not seen that. All right, so let me go back to, because that was from just now. Oh, that's from yesterday. Okay, I understand. Sorry. What's this? Trump's lawyers are again invoking the election as a reason for delay. We just read that. Okay, just making sure there isn't anything super-de-duper new. Latest. Da-da-da, Well, they clearly haven't come out yet. U.S. District, okay, so agreed on Thursday, agreed to unseal additional filings, but it hasn't happened yet, right? Judge agrees. That's old. That's really old. Is that, I did hear that this morning, Carla, that perhaps the leader of Hamas had been killed. Yeah, I heard that this morning. It was unconfirmed at that time. Have they gotten any more confirmation? I hope to God that, I know that, it was Lolo's amazing reading. Yeah, that's probably it. Did she deny the delay, Jen Mai? Yeah, I think the judge is a frequent waker and baker. I do. Oh, fantastic. Okay, good. Let's see. Check in. Do-do-do. Doodly-doo. Scoobly-doo. Boo-boo. Scoobly-doo. Do. Okay, wait. Let's see. Scott McFarlane. Let's go to him. He's on it. He's on it. I'm on it. Let me see. Hold on. Nope, there's no update. Damn. Come on. I have the worst algorithm, I think. I think that's what it is. Trump is desperate. Okay, that's fine. But now let's get to the decision. Okay, wait, I'll go another place. Don't worry. I know where to go. I would just like to share that coconut aminos are the bomb. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, there are lots of reports. On Kyle Griffin, okay, hold on. Hold on, darlings. Hold on. Granny's going to get there. It just takes a minute, you know. Okay, let's see. Oh, let's go to that nice young man, Kyle Cheney. Let's see what he has to say about things. Here we go. Well, that's not right. That's not here. He doesn't have a fast one. I don't have a fast one from him. I have something from 2 hours ago. Oh, Griffin, damn it. Wrong Kyle. There's too many of those fellers, you know. Just too many. Okay, let's go to the other Kyle. Okay, hold on. What a day, he says. Well, oh, no, that's January 20th. Okay. Yeah, I think I read this. But that's from he posted the story yesterday. He posted the story yesterday. I'm very confused. All right, we're going to just hold on that until I get something. Oh, wait, here we go. Okay, that's the same thing. All right, just making sure. Anyways, I have to fix these cords. Okay, I think there was actually something else I had for you. Oh my god, amazing. Where was it? Do 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 do. Oh, that's. I know where it was. Never minds. Never minds. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam and the deer and the antelope play. All right, I found this morning too. Little bit of a switcheroony. We're going to take a little detour. But stay with me as we enjoy a little peace. All right, so this is something that came out early this morning. It's about 11 and a half minutes. And oh, thanks. Oh, no problem. No, I figured it was fine, but I was like, uh-oh, am I missing something more than just the fact that this is from yesterday? So that was all. I wanted to make sure I wasn't like, am I the drama? No, I'm just kidding. Me? Am I the drama? I should put that GIF up. That's a pretty funny GIF. Okay, all good. All right, so I wanted to watch this morning with you, but this is, should we change the way we elect presidents? Can we? About the Electoral College, and it's by the Washington Post. So I don't really know too much about the source of this, except for it seems like an intriguing topic and an interesting host. So anyway, I thought, oh, well, let's all watch it together. So hold on. All right, here we go with the Electoral College. Oh, you just get the most stimulating stuff here at Lolo's Lounge, don't you? I know, it's covering my face. Hold on.
Hey, I'm Christina Quinn. Welcome back to Try This from the Washington Post. This is the third and final class in our course about the Electoral College. So far, we've learned how the process works and we explored the history that led to it. Now, we're going to dig further into the modern-day challenges. Class is in session. Let's try this.
And Corinne is in class.
Hello, hello.
I hope
Okay, so could you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Oh my goodness, hallelujah. Yes.
Okay, don't touch anything. And I
Don't
won't...
touch anything.
We skipped ahead.
He's on. We have him. I brought my questions back to historian and Harvard professor Alex Kazar, who you heard in the last class. After some technical difficulties, we got into it. I would love to know what you think the main flaws of the Electoral College are today, like in the modern era.
One is that you can get an outcome which doesn't conform with democratic principles, i.e. the person who wins the most votes doesn't become president. That's a democratic deficit. The second is that the Electoral College setup with winner take all deforms our election campaigns and turns all of the attention on to a handful of states, 6, 7, 8, ignores the rest of the country and really tends to focus only on swing voters in those states. It produces what is, not really a national election in terms of its dialogue. I think those are the two principal defects.
One argument in favor of the system is that the Electoral College protects minority votes in smaller states. So without it, those states would, in some respects, be forgotten, right?
We don't know that. Gubernatorial campaigns, for example, a lot of candidates for governor go to a lot of small towns in their states.
True.
And the fact is, if there were presidential like that, yes, you could say there aren't that many people in Wisconsin or in other small states. I mean, like New Hampshire, the nearby small state to me. But the fact is, a vote is a vote is a vote, and it doesn't matter where you get it. And if you can get it from a small state that's just as good as getting it from some piece of New York State or California.
Right.
So I think we just don't know how campaigning would work.
Do you think the Electoral College is just too old? Do you think it's just a largely, like, it's such an antiquated system?
I think it was misconceived and has been too antiquated for a couple of 100 years. It was conceived in a world which, for example, did not know or accept political parties. And it was conceived in a world that did not imagine a mass electorate in the sense that sort of everybody really voted. It was just conceived for a much more constrained polity.
And of course, one of the reasons we've lived with this for the last couple hundred years plus is that these kinds of things are difficult to change. The way Alex sees it, there could be 3 alternatives to modernize the system. None of them are perfect, and 2 would require a constitutional amendment. I asked Alex to talk me through the alternative scenarios.
One is a constitutional amendment to have a national popular vote, which is what I think people today think about. Well, why don't we just have an election in which everybody shows up and whoever gets the most votes becomes president, right?
Right.
Like student council.
Yeah.
And the reason for that has to do with race and segregation, predominantly in the South. The fact is that Southern political leaders who in the late 19th and until the mid 20th century did not want to give up the power advantage they had by switching to a national popular vote.
As we learned from the previous 2 classes, the Electoral College gives a state voting power in a presidential election based on its population, not based on the number of voters.
So that Southern states, which disfranchised 20 to 40% of its population, they still got the same number of electoral votes. If you switch to a national popular vote, their influence in the national election would have been greatly diminished. If you lose the Electoral College, you also lose winner take all.
And there have been big efforts to lose both. In 1965, the landmark Voting Rights Act was passed, protecting voters from discrimination regardless of race. After that, there was a push to replace the Electoral College with the national popular vote. If the entire population could vote, a national popular vote would be more democratic. And it almost happened.
In 1969-70, a constitutional amendment is put forward in Congress, and it passes the House in the fall of 1969 with about an 80% vote, a bipartisan 80% vote. Which, in the Congresses that we know in recent years, they could not get an 80% vote about what time it was.
Right.
But you need 2/3 of members of Congress to approve a constitutional amendment. It then went to the Senate, where it was stalled in committees that were led by Southern senators and was stalled for many months until finally it was killed by a filibuster.
All right, so option number 1, national popular vote. Killed by filibuster in the past, but still floating around as a possible alternative. The second option, according to Alex, is to eliminate winner-take-all, but award electoral votes by congressional district.
Is that like Nebraska?
That would require elections in each state for electors to be either by district or proportional. In other words, if you win 53% of the vote in Wisconsin, you get 53% of the electoral votes. And that would eliminate many of the hazards and defects of the Electoral College. And it would not in any way take any electoral support from the smaller states, which would not actually lose electoral votes.
And then Alex explained the third option.
And then, there is also a lot of discussion about a program called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact.
The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is an agreement among a group of states and D.C. to award all their electoral votes to whichever presidential ticket wins the overall popular vote in the 50 states and the District of Columbia.
And that could guarantee a national popular vote winner. that has a lot of support. It also has a lot of opposition. And my own view is that it's not workable.
Yeah. It also sounds like it's like another compromise.
Exactly.
It's like where we started, really. It's kind of like where we started.
Right. And you know, my own view as someone who's studied elections for a long time is that you want electoral processes to be simple, straightforward, and comprehensible to everybody.
After the break, Alex weighs in on whether he thinks saying goodbye to the Electoral College could actually happen.
Are we going to sell something? R.I.P. Mitzi Gaynor. Wait, are we selling something?
Can it be changed?
Nope.
Or do you think there are just too many forces at play depending on the election cycles?
I think it'll be difficult to change. I don't think it's going to be impossible. I think that in the near term, meaning like the next 10 years to 20 years, I think that the chances of change will depend on what happens to our parties and party structures. When your party structure is in flux, and thus it doesn't become so obvious that you can calculate the partisan advantage of having one system rather than another, I think that opens up the possibilities of change. And I don't think that's out of the question for us in the next 10 to 20 years.
In the meantime, the Electoral College is here to stay. Before we recap, I want to underscore how important it is to vote. Your vote goes toward your state's electoral vote in the presidential election. The cool part is now you know how we got here, how we choose our electors, and what happens once those ballots
Maybe
are
not
cast.
today, but we should do that.
Okie now we can recap what Alex wants us to know about the limitations of the Electoral College. The main flaw of the Electoral College, according to Alex, is that it is undemocratic in principle, and that the winner-take-all system forces presidential campaigns to focus their attention on a handful of swing states. Right now, there are 3 ways to change the Electoral College, 2 of which would require constitutional amendments. These are a national popular vote election, a system where electors vote proportionally in each state, also known as No More Winner Takes All, and the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, where electors vote for the national popular vote winner.
I love Dave Bautista.
Okay, that's it for our course on the Electoral College. Look at you. Look at us. We did it. We are now scholars of the Electoral College.
Thank you so much. Well, we're definitely going to come back to that series. Yeah. I know. Well, you know, maybe someday we'll be lucky. I gotta see this. I gotta see this thing. I gotta see Dave Bautista because I love him so much. All right, hold on. Stop. Okay, hold on. Wait, hold on. Oh, it's Jimmy Kimmel. He's funny. He's so funny. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Hat Tip Carla, for this little gem that we're about to, enjoy. Oh, maybe not. Come on. Come back. Come back, little Sheba. Oh, come on. This program is so silly sometimes. Okay, here we go. Great actor, wrestler. Trump is a Jesse Joyce. I wrote this because it's always what I always wanted to say about Trump pretending to be a tough guy, but we got the amazing Dave Bautista to say it so much better. Thanks, Dave. Trump is a weak little baby bitch. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh, look! Sydney's rocking on right there.
Fellas, we gotta talk. A lot of men seem to think that Donald Trump is some kind of tough guy. He's not. I mean, look at him. He wears more makeup than Dolly Parton. He whines like a baby. The guy's afraid of birds. Donald Trump had his daddy pay a doctor to say his Will feet hurt so he could dodge the draft. Look at that gut. Like a garbage bag full of buttermilk. He sells imaginary baseball cards pretending to be a cowboy fireman. Guy's barely strong enough to hold an umbrella. I mean, look how he drinks water. Like a little pink chickadee. He's got jugs, big ones, like Dolly Parton. He cheats at golf. He creeps around beauty pageant dressing rooms. You know that little dance he does? He looks like he's jacking off a pair of giraffes. He's moody, he pouts, he throws tantrums.
No, get those lights off!
He acts like a 5-year-old behind the wheel of a truck. He bends over for Putin. He's cattier on social media than a middle school mean girl. The guy needs help walking downhill. Almost there, Grandma. So this November, let's stop kidding ourselves. Donald Trump is afraid of rain, of dogs, of windmills, Merle Street, and being laughed at.
Isn't it past your jail time?
And mostly, he's terrified that real red-blooded American men will find out that he's a weak, tubby toddler.
Mommy, take me home. Mommy, I want to go home.
What's wrong, tough guy? Did someone grab you by the whiny bitch.
Paid for by guys who can still see their own.
Thank you, Dave. You're an American treasure.
Brought to you by guys who can still see their own dicks. Oh my God, that was perfect. Oh my God, that was perfect. What a perfect ending. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Oh my God. Thank you, Carla. Oh, you find the best clips. Oh my God. It gives me life. Life, I tell you. Well, that's great. Well, I think this has been a very productive morning. I feel like I've learned so much. I probably couldn't repeat it right now because I'm still a little bit high. But I do think it was a good set of resources. So I will again upload, I will create the description of the video with all the links of the things we've read and the things we've watched. Probably not the Pussy Beta Dick Boy podcast, but I don't know, maybe at least something about it. So yeah, I don't know. You probably don't need to see Pussy Beta Dick Boy podcast anytime soon. He is really. I mean, let's be real. I mean, even that economic forum, that guy murdered him. Like it was like, do you want to see a dead body? So yeah. Anyway. Great show. Thank you all. Boy, you guys really added to all the aspects of this show, and I'm really grateful. We got some really good links and really good information, and we'll definitely return to the Washington Post classes, those little mini classes. I like those. If you did too, let me know. And I think those would be interesting. I like things that are presented very clearly. I love that Joyce Vance article about the superseding indictment. I thought that was great. Anyway, thanks for coming this happy Thursday. I hope the rest of your Thursday is fantastic. Check out Coconut Aminos. That's the daily tip from Jay Rance, who, with glue gun in hand, is the glue gun warrior. And she's coming to save your house, the glue gun warrior. We're going to do her an 80s hair anthem. All right. Have a great day, everyone. I will see you tomorrow morning. And if the other stuff comes out, if the stuff comes out this afternoon or whatever, I might go live again just to see if we can kind of traipse through it, just for funsies. So, keep an eye out, hit the bell, make it solid, and then you'll be advised, I guess. I don't really know how that works. You're welcome. Thank you, Paulina, and everyone. Have a wonderful day, Lee. If coconut aminos won't save you, the glue gun will. Yeah, we can work with that. All right. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Have a good one. A reminder, keep an eye out. If Chuck comes out with some juicy shit, we're going to come right on back, babies. Yeah, we are.